Hello YouTube, what's going on? This is Mark bringing you another video, and yes, this is one of the first times I've made a video dedicated to YouTube in quite a while. So we're bringing back a series that was widely successful on my YouTube channel when it ran. This is Critical Ops game guides, and we're going to go back to it. If you didn't watch those videos before, I've already made two of these on the AK-47 and the M4 in the past. Basically, it's tutorial tips, tricks, statistics as well, and now since it's been a while, Critical Ops has actually released a lot of statistics about the gun, so we can go a little more in depth as well into each of these guns. As you can see by the title, we're going to be covering the P250 today. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Just covering bare basics right now, I want to show you what the P250 has to offer. There are 17 rounds in each magazine with 34 in the reserve for the total gun. As far as cost goes, this is a free gun as a starter, but if you somehow manage to lose it or you want to drop this gun to someone else, it will cost you $300. As far as in-game statistics go, the economy price, like we mentioned, is $300. The damage ranges anywhere from 22 to 33, and the fire rate is 315. The clip size, like we mentioned, is 17, and there's 2 extra clips for that 34, like I mentioned, total reserve in the gun. This movement speed reduction is actually 7% less, and the effective distance is about 7 units, which is moderately low, or on the lower end of that side. The armor penetration ability is low, and the wall penetration is weak. So now, taking a look and zooming out these stats to all of the pistols at hand, we can see here that obviously the worst parts about this gun are the range, the armor penetration, and the wall penetration. You're gonna have a very tough time. It has the lowest range, right? Lowest effective distance. It has a very low armor penetration and a weak wall penetration. Now, if you want those stronger ones, you're gonna have to go for the MR96 or the Deagle as far as those things go as well. But however, with that being said, with the P250, you have a pretty good movement reduction. It is one of the faster pistols out there with the GSR and the Deagle at the same end there, and it has a good amount of bullets there. I think a lot of people ask, why would you use the P250 over another gun, right? It has low damage, it has, you know, moderately high fire rate, but the damage is pretty low as well, and you know, like we said, the distance and the penetration are low. Well, the big thing here is that there's a lot of bullets to come with it, right? I think with the MTX as well, you do have a lot of bullets, but you have to buy that gun. With the P250, it comes freely in hand with it. So the P250 is a good starter weapon. It's not the best and it's not the worst, right? You can see there's some guns that have even lower damage, right? Like the XD45 has a lowest damage as well. But with that being said, the P250 kind of is still at the lower echelon of the pistols, given its price and given it is the starting pistol. Moving on to the recoil pattern. So at shorter distances, the P250 has little to no recoil, so simply aim for the chest and the head, and at longer distances, the P250 has a circular recoil pattern that is fairly small. To mitigate this recoil pattern, I'd simply recommend you tap fire the P250 quickly instead of holding down the trigger button, as that allows you to control each bullet with more precision. Moving on to the movement speed reduction, you might be asking yourself, what is that? So I mentioned before, it is 7% compared to the knife, which actually increases your movement by 2.5%. However, I do find it strange there is no baseline. There's no weapon that is 0% movement speed, right? Which is just straight at the base. And so I think that was interesting. Is the knife the baseline? I'm not sure, because according to the charts, there is no gunner utility that has 0% additional or, 0% slower or faster movement speed. So the default movement speed is 5.3, but it doesn't say which gun gives you that 5.3 speed. So take that with a grain of salt. Now, what about the P250's ability to penetrate walls? It's quite dismal. It's quite weak, and so if you want a pistol that's able to wallbang spots like Wagon on Bureau or the trash cans on Plaza, you should look to the Deagle or the MR96 instead. Now, what is the RPM? We kind of covered this already, but it's 315 rounds per minute, which if you calculate it out is about 5.27 rounds per second. And this also means that it is a 3.24 time or seconds to actually clear the magazine if you want to spam it. So here's where we're going to get a little more technical into the actual statistics. So you might be asking yourself, what is the damage per second? So assuming you hit 5 rounds in 1 second to the chest, the P250 will have a damage per second of between 127.6 to 191.4 against unarmored targets, and they will have a damage per second of between 82.94 and 124.41 against armor targets, as the Lone has a pretty low armor penetration ability. If you're wondering where I got those numbers from, they're available on the 1.25.0 patch notes page, and this is just enough to kill unarmored players, so it might be able to kill armored targets depending on your range as well. We've covered this a little bit before already, but what about the armor penetration? So the armor penetration is overall poor, with armor reducing 35% of the damage taken from the gun, so that's why eco rounds with the P250 are always pretty difficult. Taking a look at the range, the P250 has an effective distance of 7 units in game, meaning it has the lowest range of all the pistols, with the MR96 having the highest range at 20 units. This means your shots at long range are more likely to be inaccurate even if your crosshair is on your target compared to other pistols. Now, these two upcoming stats, reload time and draw speed, I actually had to do myself. These are not stats availably listed on the actual website from Critical Ops. So I did a little experiment on my end. So after about 5 trials for reload time, I averaged the time to about 2.07 seconds, which is pretty quick in all things considered. And for draw speed, after 5 trials, I averaged a draw speed of about 0.46 seconds, which means that basically from when you have your knife out to when your pistol is ready to shoot is about 0.46 seconds. And same thing with the reload time, from when you hit the reload button to when you're able to shoot the first bullet. So with all the stats in mind, you might be asking yourself, what are the overall pros and cons? Well, for pros, it can one-hit kill players with no Kevlar in the head, which makes it really good versus some players who maybe have a GSR or bought a Deagle, right? So you can kill those players with one hit, you can take their pistol, and you can upgrade to an even better pistol, which is really nice. It has the 3rd fastest fire rate of all pistols, and the recoil is fairly easy to control, like we mentioned. It doesn't also affect walking speed heavily, which is good, and there's also pretty good first shot accuracy. Now, on the flip side of things, there's poor armor and wall penetration. It has lower damage than almost all the other pistols. It has the lowest effective distance out of all the pistols, and it has the least amount of extra mags in reserve. That's not that big of a con though, given that it has a pretty big clip size. So finally, we reach tips for the gun. So the P250 is great for when the enemy is on an eco round and you'd like to save money. For instance, if you've won the pistol round, you might consider sticking with that and having some armor and grenades with you to save for a sniper if you know that they'll have no armor on their end. Using a P250 on eco rounds can make it much tougher to kill people, especially on long range maps like plaza or canals, where the damage drop off is especially pertinent. And the P250 can do a great job of catching people off guard, so if you can sneak people behind a scoped sniper with armor, a double headshot will grant you their weapon. The P250 is usually good for finishing the job on any other primary weapon, and for instance, let's say you've done 70 damage on your AK but you run out of bullets, the P250 has the ability to be equipped quickly and can finish the job with its high RPM. Like all guns, aim for the stomach and the head as they grant the highest amount of damage, and if the aiming is not your specialty, the XD45 or the dual MTX might be your better friend. However, if you'd like to spray with the P250, learn the recoil pattern, as there is some slight recoil to it like I mentioned before. You should also ensure you are tapping the shoot button as quickly as possible instead of holding it down for auto fire. You can fire much quicker if you manually tap and have quick fingers, so that can help you maximize RPM. With that being said, I'm guilty of being lazy and holding down that fire button. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the best way to counter the P250? And to that I say, it's very easy. Just be at long range for one. That's got a really high damage drop off, and so the P250 is usually rendered useless at long range. And make sure you have Kevlar, and that'll make it quite difficult for you to die from a P250 alone. If you're going for a pistol v pistol fight, having a high RPM pistol like the MTX or high armor penetration weapon like the Deagle can win a fight much more quickly than the P250 can. And last but not least, I just wanted to include a little bonus, which are my favorite P250 skins that I have on my end with all the tiers. So starting with tier 1, you can't go wrong with the Class of Olive skin, so that'll be my favorite tier 1 P250 skin. For tier 2, while I like the Lotus, the Maple skin is actually quite clean, so I have to pick the Maple as my favorite tier 2 P250 skin. It's getting tougher for tier 3, as I'm going to have to pick between top-notch skins like Memories, Cyclone, and Sugar Rush. Ultimately, I picked the Sugar Rush as my favorite tier 3 P250 skin. And you think, tier 4 might be trickier, but it's actually really easy. My favorite is the Serve a Day. I just love the colors and the bright pink near the trigger. And for my favorite tier 5, I've done so many of these throughout all my videos, and in fact, I've used all of them, but my favorite skin has to go to the Classic Phoenix skin. It's been my favorite tier 5 for a while, and it's hard to be displaced as one of the OG skins in Critical Ops. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you found this informative. Please also let me know what other information you'd like me to include about each topic I do. I plan on moving this series beyond just guns and covering other things like maps and utility, but I'm starting out with weapons first. So I think that will be how I section out this series. Any and all feedback is appreciated. If you enjoyed, I would appreciate if you liked, and if you want to see more videos like this, please do subscribe. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody.